Dang, we are out of preseason mode. We're ready to roll into that regular season. Breaking the huddle, walking up to the line, and just getting our butts handed to us by whoever it is across from us.
You know who invited me? I kind of invited myself over for the first game of the year again.
Who?
Peyton Scandridge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, first football game.
That would be a lot of fun. I'd love to join you guys.
Peyton, come on, come hang out. Oh, Kent's inviting himself.
Yeah.
Riley, you got anything to share?
I guess I'll invite myself too.
Yeah. Peyton, we're coming for you. But you know what? I bet Aaron knows Peyton too. Let's get Aaron.
Yeah. We just bring a party. All of our friends.
we bring the greater Sully area to Peyton.
Oh man, I think I've told you guys about the time that Peyton and Kyle and I were hanging out, and we were in a text thread. We were like juniors or whatever. And the text was, "Man, we need to hang out. Nicholas, invite girls." And so I did. And as you guys can imagine, I just invited all. And usually I have like this rule that a certain percentage of people of the invites that get sent out come and hang out. And the more last minute is, the lower percentage. And at different stages of your life, it's different percentages. But at that time, I think I was thinking like 25 or 50% would show up that night.
Yeah.
Every single female that I texted showed up, and I was at Kyle's house, and Kyle's dad walks up to me when I get there and goes, "Nicholas, who the hell are all of these people?" And I'm like, I really didn't think all of them would show up.
That's when the Peyton? Who are all these people?
Oh, man. If you guys don't know who Peyton is, you haven't been listening to the podcast long enough. And I'll just tell you right now, don't go back. Don't go back to those episodes.
Remain ignorant to who Peyton Scandridge is.
Oh man! Hey, before we get started, Riley, why don't you tell us about the events of last Friday and today on the farm?
Ooh.
Give people a little tour verbally,
you just
audibly.
wanted a trauma dump here?
No, I just want people to know like what it actually means to, I think they envision we're this big prairie farm. We have this giant equipment, but Riley,
well, Kent and I were 1 week. We chopped. What was it, a week and a half ago?
Oh, when we swathed it?
Yeah.
It'll be 2 weeks ago this coming Wednesday.
So swathed the crop, tried multiple times to get started harvesting it, ran into problems with humidity.
Well, we had a lot of rain forecasted in there. And so ideally when you swath these, you want to have like a week's time for most species in between getting it into the windrow and when you're harvesting just for dry time. Mm-hmm. But we had this. The seed needs to come down, though, at a certain point, too. Sometimes it's more vulnerable on the stem. Sometimes it's more vulnerable in the windrow, just depending on the species, as far as like rain knocking it off or wind blowing it off. Like, for instance, milkweed, I generally view that as safer in the windrow than letting it overripe, like fully mature on the stem. Now the wind's blowing it around and stuff, and you lose it. And Illinois tick, I could kind of see it going either way. So we had this 3-day window to like from cut to, so we cut on a Wednesday and we both came in on a Saturday to harvest. And so what is that? 3 days, 4 days, something like that?
which has been plenty for other plants at different times.
Well, I knew it was on the early end.
Yeah.
But again, I had rain coming Sunday, Monday, Tuesday was forecast.
So these guys came in on their day off to get this harvested.
And it worked okay at first, but then
Okay
some of the stems just turned to like wire, and the pickup head on the combine just kept getting bound up. Mm-hmm. So then that takes us to
the next week. We tried it for about an hour or two.
On Monday. Yeah, it's still same problem with the pickup.
Yep.
Wasn't dry enough yet.
Moved over to a different crop, which thankfully did work a little bit slow, but we got
What crop
through
was
it.
that?
Golden Alex.
Yeah, Golden Alexander.
Yeah.
We got
Golden
it.
Alex,
Yeah,
yep.
and even that day we were here till 7 o'clock that night.
7:30, something like that.
Yep.
Man, I really like Golden Alex because it shows up early and it's got seeds early. So it doesn't just flower early. It's actually got protein on it early. And so it's considered good for cattle and for whitetail. Fun fact.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's got that protein early. It's not just the leafy substance.
Are deer do they like eating it, or is it too strong smelling and tasting for them?
From what I could tell, they like eating it. That was me having a conversation with Skip Sly. So
Okay.
yeah.
He's
I would imagine
observant.
they browse the leaves quite a bit too
Yeah, it
before
is
it
pretty
actually goes
leafy,
super
yeah.
fragrant.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But anyway, so you guys got up Golden Alexander, and then what was happening after that?
Then we went to Foxglove Beard Tongue, and foxglove is a really easy species to clean. So weeds, you obviously don't want any weeds in your field, but when you grow nearly 40 different species, you have to prioritize, right? And because foxglove has such tiny seed, it's very easy to separate from pretty much everything else other than like, pigweed or something that has a really tiny seed. But even then, foxglove is way lighter, so you can separate from pigweed pretty easy by wind. So it was a weedier field, and there were some black nightshade berries in there, which I believe is a native annual weed. And
part of the reason, if you guys follow us on Instagram, you would actually see that a lot of our fields are weedier. One, because our summer was blown up by my dad passing, but a big part of it was just that it was so rainy. It was so wet, we couldn't get in there. And so, does that help with seed production? Yes, but it also helps with weed production, and you can't get in when it's super muddy and
we do not have GMO native plants that are 2,4-D and Roundup resistant. But anyways, so we've been prioritizing other fields for more intensive weed control with the resources we have, and I did not know this, but we tried running the combine. The windrow was nice and dry. We were like, I think we were going to try and fit it in like right before lunch or something.
Yeah, we were just we had an hour and we thought, okay,
we'll get it done real quick.
And everything was working great on the combine. But then when Riley's like checking the seed bag, he's like, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's check and see if we're blowing it out the combine. And you were checking.
Yeah, wasn't coming out.
Wasn't coming out the combine. So it's staying in the combine. It just wasn't making it to the bag. Well, then we look. And on the sieves, where the clean grain is supposed to fall through and then make its way over to the clean grain elevator and end up in the bag, there's just like a pile of material.
Yeah,
it was all wet. It's like how
like the size of a volleyball.
Wet. It's not. Ugh. It's not. The windrow's not wet.
At this point, you'd been drying it for a week and a half.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It'd been down for, I think it was at least a week at that point, and. I noticed those nightshade berries were like sitting in the combine, and I was like, I wonder. And so I went and I took a knife and I just stabbed one of them because they are, I believe, also poisonous. So you got to be careful. So I stabbed one, and sure enough, like all this juice came running out.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that really what's causing? I just don't think there's enough berries in this field to be doing that. But I would later talk to my grandfather that night, and I told him the story about it. My grandpa's 88, and he used to farm, soybeans and oats, and I don't know if they ran corn through these. I think no, they didn't. They would have had a corn picker. So they did soybeans and oats through these combines, and that we use. And I said, yeah, you know what a black nightshade is? And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, that'll gum up a combine faster than anything.
So before you even brought up that the combine was...
Well, I kind of talking that direction. He's like, no, that is a well-known
That is
problem.
A man who has had experience with nightshade.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So we had that issue. So then we were back to... Illinois tick.
Man, in 50 years, when your grandchildren are trying to use all cropper from year 1968, the 100-year-old all cropper, they're running into nightshade issues. You could do the same thing.
Well, we got to let the best part of the story is what happened on Friday, though. So Riley,
so we get all the way.
This is going way longer than Nicholas wants, but
this is good. We're
piling on.
I want people to know.
So we finally last Friday went. Well, it's been as long as we dare wait.
Because then you start losing seed in the windrow.
Yeah, the windrow looked good. So we took the combine out there to do the Illinois tick like we planned to over about a week before, 6 days before. And we got out there and we started going. It was going pretty good. Kind of just taking it slow, trying to make sure we didn't run through too much through the machine. And then we got about 10% away from being done. The stage is set. It's 7:30 at night. The sun's starting to go down. The moisture's starting to come in. I'm thinking if we can just get this last 10%, we'll be good. And I look down and one of the bearings is a little bit worn. I'm like, okay, well, that's not a good sign. But we stopped and we greased it and kind of just tried to keep an eye on it. And
it's been a problem that showed up a couple of seasons ago, but Carol was able to revive it with lots and lots of grease. But we've been doing that same regimen ever since, tons and tons of grease.
And so we were on the last, I'd say maybe 2 windrows, 90% through, and we finish up a windrow, and all of a sudden, smoke starts pouring out of the combine.
Oh.
Yeah, the bearing had blown
completely seized.
Yeah, and the belt was trying to eat itself alive.
Yeah, it's about to catch fire.
Yeah.
And even interesting before that too, on the pickup head, there's these really old fashioned chains. Some of you out there might know them. They're called flat chains or detachable chains. Mm-hmm. And I had seen a tool for these years ago in my grandfather's machine shed. And I was like, Grandpa, what is this? And I'm from the Quad Cities originally. So one of probably the most famous city of the Quad Cities is Moline, Illinois, because that's birthplace of John Deere, right? And he had on his workbench at this time this old like hammer looking thing, and it says right on there, Moline Tractor Company. So think with me now, those of you tractor historians out there, this is before Moline partnered up with Minneapolis, which Minneapolis Moline went out of business when, right? Like the 50s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's an ancient tool, right?
Yeah.
That's how old a technology this is. So we have a flat chain brake. We kind of rig it back together, get like 2 more windrows out of it or 2 more passes around the field. And then it's just like broken. So we have to come back
that's when it blew up, basically.
No, this was before the bearing.
Okay, before the bearing went out, the chain had an issue. Yeah. You kind of fixed it, and then the chain snapped.
Then the chain really just wasn't going to work, and so we needed a new chain. So we had to come back here, find a parts machine out in the old parts department, and figure out how to break one of these chains. Now Riley and I know how to break a roller chain, but not a flat chain, and turns out, as I'm like Googling this, I see that hammer tool that I saw on my grandpa's workbench. I'm like, I've seen that before, and I've been intimidated by how the heck does that thing work before. So I just called my grandpa. And I'm like, Grandpa, I think I need your advice here on this chain. And he talked me through it and told me, how it's supposed. I in fact did need that tool.
Crazy.
And then I called our neighbor Jim, who's a great Allis-Chalmers mechanic, and he kind of coached me up on it. Riley found a video, and I've never been more proud of Riley than when I saw him pound that chain link apart on using that archaic old tool, and that we used it to get a new chain on there, and we were back in business. So that's
for about 2 more hours, and then the bearing blew up.
When that chain broke, we were probably sitting at about 50% of the field.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We got quite a bit done.
And so because we were able to figure out that flat chain with the help from people who know from generations past of farming, we were able to, get things to the point where I'd say we got 95% of that field done.
Well, and you guys will see next week, you'll see a video of us, because the bearing blew up on that combine, the different combine that we pulled out that we have to get all the rust off of and get it taken care of. And by we, I mean Riley and Ken. But
you're helping in there. You're helping.
Something I'm trying to do is once a week, I'm trying to have a little hey, this is what we do on the Prairie farm. Because I think it's just like, it can be romanticized, just like everything. Everything can be romanticized.
I took a video back when we were feeling on top of the mountain after we fixed that flat chain. Riley was swapping bags or greasing that bearing, and I was helping him pull the bag out of the tank. And I was like, Nicholas told me to shoot a video. I forgot to shoot the video while we were fixing the thing. So I just kind of told the story. Well, then, an hour later we hit our bearing problem, but maybe I'll have Nicholas post that so you can kind of see.
Man, yeah, I mean, it's an ordeal around here. And to be fair, like, even when Dad was swinging at his hardest before he got sick, it was like fixing equipment was a whole ordeal.
Oh yeah.
And because when without us dropping, I've gone and gotten quotes for new machinery that we could use. One, it doesn't come in the size that we need it. You know, they're like, for instance, swathers. They don't make 10-foot swathers. Why do we need 10-foot swathers? Because bigger swaths mean you need bigger combines. So now you don't just have a $250,000 swather. You've got to buy a $250,000 or $350,000 combine.
Yep.
And I'd love to say that Hoxie Native Seeds is doing well, because a lot of people calling in, getting seed from around the Midwest and beyond. But we're not doing that well.
and Dan Allen, who's been in the business about as long as Carol has, or just as long, when we were at the stakeholders meeting this year up at UNI, we were having one of the breakout sessions was talking about conditioning seed, and Dan just goes, "There is no silver bullet in this industry.
Yeah,
like everything is, you have to figure it out. You have to, and it's very true. So new does not necessarily solve your problems. In fact, we got a big piece of equipment here that was kind of touted as like this new revolutionary thing. And Carol and I really messed with it last year, and it just is not great. You know? It works a little bit, but it's not better than our current methods. So.
Yeah, no, I am, it is empowering to get native seed in, because then you go to the rest of your life and you're like, I could do that. You know, because you know, I just used a 150-year-old chain link breaker to be able to get this harvested. I could totally do my taxes.
Yes.
Man, so I've got a topic today, and it's not current events. In fact, it's probably the least current events thing we've maybe ever covered.
Oh, good. I was hoping it's kind of related to what we were just talking about.
Exactly. So 1830s is when Iowa was kind of fully in its being settled phase, right? It's just in the swing of things. Kent, calm down. You're interrupting.
You get so excited about the 1830s.
I know, I choked on my coffee.
Let me try again. No, the 1830s, Iowa was in full swing of being settled up through, you know, kind of the 1880s, and then it was kind of considered settled. Well, during that time, I wanted to know, what the heck is day-to-day life like? And here's why. I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but this really bothers me. Everybody my age and a little older, we're complaining about boomers having too much money, or people are charging too much for rent, or all these things. And I've paid a lot for rent. I rent a place right now, and I've fought for a job. I've made less than I think I should. You know, all the things. But when it comes down to it, every night I have a TV with like a bunch of streaming services. I could totally escape my living. There is almost no book that I couldn't just go and buy that I couldn't afford. If I need new shoes, I could go and get them that same exact day. I never think, oh, what shirt am I going to wear tomorrow, because I don't have shirts. Now, sometimes they're all dirty, but you know,
it's a different problem all the time.
Sometimes.
But you know what I mean? Like I don't ever think, and I don't know a single person that is able-bodied and an adult that thinks, I don't know, I'm going to starve to death. A lot of times we go, I don't know what I'm going to eat, but that's totally out of preference. You know, in our city, there's several food pantries, and I know several churches, if you called and said, I don't have any food, I haven't eaten all day, there's not a single church that wouldn't go, we'll take care of you. We'll get you a meal, whatever, you know. So the resources are around. There was a time when that was not the case. And that time, well, for most of human history, but specifically in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, where life looked a little differently. So here is the day of a life of Iowa homesteader. And let's start with the dad. The dad is basically all the romantic work that you think of. They would wake up early in the morning. If it's early settlement, they're breaking sod. I mean, back-breaking work. They're breaking sod. They're building houses. They're chopping down wood. They're clearing out areas. They're and some of them. And so this is mostly from journal entries, from diaries, because back then diaries are a really interesting thing, actually, because they weren't like, well, today I was feeling so-and-so. No, people's diaries were life and death, because it's how they kept track of weather patterns. It's how they knew who owed them what money, you know, going into whatever season. Like diaries were life and death for these families. They were basically their computer on how they kept track of anything. So a lot of this information is from diaries. The dads were doing the work you would think they were doing. They were either prepping for farming or farming. And later in quote unquote settlement area where they had towns, they would a lot of times have a part-time job in town. But most people couldn't have a 50-hour a work week job in town. They couldn't do that and farm. So they would have a part-time job. The mom, that was really interesting, is they're doing the chores. They're doing laundry and dishes. They're feeding the livestock, if that's applicable. Sometimes they were helping their husbands, but don't overlook, like, laundry was an all-day event. Like, oh, we're gonna get out of your 2 sets of clothes, we're gonna wash all the first set every Tuesday, and the next Tuesday they wash the second set, and it would take all day. It was like really rigorous scrubbing, and hard work to get that. And think compared to today,
you're not loading the top loader, the Samsung, and pressing the start button.
Exactly. And I complain about that, man. I feel so stupid. And then this is what really got me. I've been talking about this with my friends, and I think they're annoyed at me because, I don't have kids, but I'm talking about what kids used to do. Younger kids, 3 to 7, basically easily able to walk to 7 years old. We had a bunch of chores. They would collect the eggs. They would get firewood. They would carry water from the creek or from the well, taking care of the garden, a lot of the garden. And the older boys, now keep in mind, who are the younger boys? 3 to 7. Older boys are 8 and up. They're just a man working in the field with their dad. They were just in the field. Like Jonas is 8. Yeah. He'd be here at work with you every day, all day. There's this plumber in town in Knoxville, and his son, I think 7 to 9, somewhere in there. And every Friday he goes to work all day with his dad. One of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Well, and someone's probably thinking right now, well, what about school? I thought a lot of them went to school. And that is why we have summers off.
Yeah.
And no longer should.
Yes.
The semester break should happen in like October to the end of November.
Yeah.
When it's actually nice to be outside.
I'm a big proponent of quarters with 2 to 3 week breaks in between. Yeah. I mean, because that's actually a better rest cycle for just your bodies. The older girls were basically just women that, in terms of like what chores they were doing. They were categorized as, hey, you're going to do hard manual labor. So I know we're saying like house chores. House chores were hard manual labor. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or they were sewing things and fixing things, or they might have helped in the garden as well, or tending the livestock. This is the day in the life. And this isn't just like a day in the life. This is every day in the life of a homesteader, except Sundays. They took them really seriously. They stayed inside. They read books. They might have done light work, like, again, maybe repairing clothes or weaving something for fun. Or there's actually pretty common, that's when they would like do gifts for neighbors. They would kind of put gifts together or write poetry or, whatever they're doing. School, not in the homesteader, like the true like settlers, first people there, school was like, maybe you had enough people in an area where one of the moms would teach for a couple months out of the winter. And that was school. It was very, very limited. Now, I don't think that's better. I think that more education is better. Right. But then also, it's important to note they took really long breaks in the afternoon, especially during the summer. 2-hour break was nothing for them when it got the hottest part of the day. And then they worked all evening. So like when we get off of work at 5 or 6, they now are working again, but they're not doing the manual labor. They're doing quieter tasks in their house usually.
Right.
And so I just thought like that helped check me like really, really strong. And I've been thinking about that for a couple weeks since I was like, this should be a topic that we go over.
Isn't there? So along those lines, maybe you still have this in your paperwork there, but the midnight oil, that was another thing too, right? Another reality was they would, I think, go to sleep probably at dark, and then they'd wake up at like in the middle, probably midnight, right? Middle of the night. And, then they would get like some reading done or some other like house chores done and they would burn a little bit of their kerosene to, get that stuff done in the middle of the night. And then they would go back to sleep after, doing that. I read that somewhere once. I don't know if it's true or not, but
Riley, do you have something to say on
that?
Yeah,
I think there's, the thing I've heard referenced is like creative types would do that, like writers and things like that.
So it was more of like a hobby or like.
Well, I think it's. I obviously you're probably not like busting sod at 2 a.m. You're probably like writing
indoors.
Or, I don't know. Maybe you have accounts or something you have to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure plenty of people did it.
Well, and you got to remember, just like for us, charging our cell phone is part of every day. For them, like reading the Bible was a part of every single day. So it was in there somewhere, whether it was in the evenings or late at night. I don't know. I know for sure, like the colonies, that was common practice. But I also wonder, that is a very different culture.
Well, here's something to write in about. If you know what's going on with the midnight oil and all that.
But obviously, it's a totally different culture to be in Iowa when no one else lives here than it was to be in Philadelphia in 1770 or even 1750. So, so here's another thing that was a reality check for them. Think about crop failure for us. Yeah. So for people with corn and beans, they get an insurance check and maybe they barely break even on it. So it's like a bad financial year. For us, that like if we have too many crop failure, we got a couple in a row, like that could be financial ruin because we don't have insurance on that stuff. And even that doesn't compare.
Right.
They could literally starve to death if they don't have a community around them. They get a crop failure.
And that's, we dog on subsidized crop insurance, and have in the past, and rightly so, because it certainly is not a perfect system. But the idea there is insurance, you're protecting your supposed food makers. I would say more, that is still a part of it now, but a huge part of it is also fuel makers, right? To be able to stay in business, to keep producing the product that's not just wanted but needed, right? Yeah. To make society work. And so that's where that traces itself back to is this reality that you're talking about here is if all the farmers go out of business, you can only do so many land transfers at the bank sale when the guy went out of business, and try to keep more farmers in business by insuring their crops, I'm sure was part of that reasoning for that.
Yeah. Another big deal. Think about like the last person you talked to that got a little pneumonia, assuming they weren't super old. It's like, man, I'm sorry you went through that for a couple weeks. That sucks. You were taking some medicine. Not the same thing for them. Probably like good chance you're gonna die, or even tuberculosis. Like, that sucks today, but like,
or even, I don't want tuberculosis today.
Well, but you know what I mean? It's not a guaranteed death sentence. They're guaranteed death sentence, and they couldn't even tell what they had. They just knew they had a fever or they were coughing a bunch or, and then of course accidents, we hit our leg with an axe. We got to run to the hospital. They hit their leg with an axe. They get infected.
That might kill them.
Lose their leg, might kill them. Maybe they're half a day's ride from a doctor. You know what I mean? And so it's just a different world. And then the last big one was weather for them. They could have 2 really bad winters in a row, kills all their livestock, and maybe they make it. Now they have to move back east or, you know what I mean? Whereas for us, it's a little more expensive because we got to turn up the heat, during the winter. It's just a different world that I couldn't imagine like facing and having to have the strength to work every day, all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, it's interesting. Just like we had that conversation, I don't know when it was, maybe this last spring. In fact, someone wrote in this poem about if we all lived in teepees, and it was it's a good sentiment. Like, I think Native Americans really figured out, this has been said on this podcast too, to living with the land instead of like bending it into their will and submission, right? They were in rhythm with the seasons and the times of year and stuff. And so I think they were able to, not that they didn't have their hardships for sure, sickness and injuries and things like that, but that European settler mindset of I'm going to take society and put it where society doesn't exist. And eventually when push came to shove, right, the prairie gave way, right? We don't have prairie today, and we have all kinds of huge urban areas and civilization and everything else that is about, goes around that European model, right? And these settlers were the first ones that were making that mark on the land, right? They were, like you said, sod busting, started with that, and then raising a house, and then a barn, and having fences, and having even the idea of land ownership, right, was different than what Native Americans viewed. Certainly tribes had territories that they even defended, right? But it wasn't so individualized, right? It wasn't like each member of the tribe owned this parcel and no other member of the tribe could go on it without permission, and so I think of that, just like a lot of that hardship came from, in some ways, maybe fitting a square peg into a round hole, is what settlement kind of is by nature, for lack of a better term,
Yeah. Well, I loved reading about this. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a gut check for me, and it's a reminder that actually I should probably be more connected with nature. And I'm outside quite a bit every day, and even then I'm like, it'd be good for me to be outside even more, or more connected with the earth than I currently am right now. My wife and I are kind of bummed. We're in the first house that we haven't had a garden, or we've been a year and a half without a garden now. And, it's been our first time since we moved to Iowa, not having a garden just because of where we live. And I'm like, man, this sucks. I like having a garden, and we don't even do gardens for eating. We just have flower and prairie gardens. They're better. But why
not have both?
Yeah, no, you could right next to each other. I've seen some really, really cool ones, but,
another thing that I thought of as you were working through that list there is the concept of time, with and the original work from home, right? That rhythm that you talked about of like, it's noon to 3:00. Of course I'm not out there. It's like 150 degrees. I'm going to go and sit in the shade, or sit down by the creek or wherever I can go to cool off. Maybe it was down in the root cellar or something. And then I'll go back out at 6:00 or whatever and work till dark. Well, we can't do that for most people today because almost everywhere, including us, we come to a place where we work that is not our home, right? And so your family life continues on a regular schedule. And because it's not something to complain about, it's something to like take notice of, like, hey, we did this to ourselves, human race. We made it so that it's not a viable option for the vast majority of people in farmland USA to still be like their full-time occupation, literally occupying their time is spent working at home to grow and develop the things that they need to survive. And most people, you got to go somewhere else to do that now. And somebody's got to, and not only that, but most people aren't even able to go and work on something that is directly keeping them alive. They're just getting the credits, the money, the cash to go back and buy the things that somebody else produced to keep yourself alive. And because we've gone whole hog into that system, you can't live with that rhythm that they once had. And then on top of that, how often do we feel when it's time to go? You talked about like the kids going to do chores and stuff. Like, you don't have time for Sally to go pull weeds because Sally's got to go to violin lessons, and then she's got basketball camp after that, and then she's got all this, and so we have like all these other demands that happen off the places where we live that completely dominate our time, and not just the actual minutes on the clock, but the mental state of our minds that is around time, right? We feel too hurried. Like, gotta hurry up, get these weeds pulled, hurry up, because I got to get on to this next thing, and I have this other obligation.
That's real.
Whereas these people were in a rhythm. They had nothing to go to.
Well, there's a time period where that shifted, and it was the Industrial Revolution, and it was because it went from majority farming. So we were on a farming cycle. We were on this farm, which wasn't day by day. It was year by year, right? It was this farming. We followed the sun. We followed the weather. Into the Industrial Revolution, where they showed up at 8 and they left at 8. And
which isn't all bad either.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when the majority of humans, when all of your cousins and all of your siblings work from 8 to 8, which now it's 9 to 5, but when they all work 9 to 5, what do? Well, in order to fit in and hang out with them, I need to fit in 9 to 5, and that's what ended up happening there. But you're right, it's not all bad, but we've thrown a lot out with the good. I mean, most civilizations in especially in hotter areas had a siesta, like a few hour siesta in the middle of the hot day.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, I think we should. But
and that's where they got that sleep back for the midnight oil. It's all coming together.
Well, what I would love to do that at Hoxie, but what are you guys going to do? Drive all the way back home just to drive back? You know, it just doesn't make sense. But if it was at your house, you know, then it makes more sense. Well, Riley, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you captured it pretty well.
I think we should title this one "Siestas and Midnight Oil."
That dude, that's all I want. That's all I was, siestas, and I want to keep sleeping through the night and get a siesta. Oh man, we really appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you again next time.